Ideally, what you'll do is get a chair with no arms, okay, and you'll sit on the very edge of it with your feet firmly on the ground, and you're going to have your elbows out from your side a little, not like up here, not down here, somewhere around here, and you're going to have them raised a little, okay? So the tin whistle is going to be around here, not down here, up here, okay? And your whole upper body should be totally relaxed. It should be as if your fingers are almost going to fall off the whistle. They're just so chilled out. So check this out. Kind of like that. This is actually a tiny bit more complicated than you would think. Okay, so 6 fingers down is low D. Give that a go. 5 fingers down is low E. Brilliant. Now, the next note is 4 fingers down, and we call it F. I need you to know we call it F, but it's actually F sharp. The next note is 3 fingers down. It's G. Next note is 2 fingers down. We call it A. Next note, 1 finger down, B. Next note has no fingers on the whistle. And that, incidentally, is why it's important to keep your elbows up, because otherwise your tin whistle falls, right? So the funky thing about this note is that we call it C, but it's actually C sharp, okay? Us Irish, we're just so bloomin' lazy, and well, it's not that we're lazy, we think fast, so our speech just has to, you know, be abbreviated so it can keep up with our brains. So next thing is high D. So I do a high D with 5 fingers on the whistle. Instead of doing this, I do this in order to get gorgeous clear tone. So I'd like you to do that too. Okay, so next is high E, next is high F, next is high G, high A, high B, and then the slightly painful high C, which again we call C, but it's actually a C sharp. Okay, so essentially everything is labelled as it is except for this F and this F, which we call high F and high F respectively, but are actually F sharp and high F sharp. And this note, which is C in common parlance, but actually clinically speaking, it's a C sharp. Red alert. This is one of the most important things in Irish traditional music, and I need you to be hyper vigilant about it as you're learning the tunes, okay? So it's articulation, and basically you can play notes 2 ways on the whistle. I can play a continuous flow of air as I'm moving my fingers, and that's called slurring. It sounds like this. Or I can use my tongue to stop the air intermittently, and I do that as I'm moving my fingers. So it sounds like this. So let's see if we can get you to do that. Try just taking a breath and exhale in one continuous flow of breath as you do a D, E, F, G, A, B up the scale. Ready, ready, steady, go. Fair play to you. Okay, now what I want you to do is tonguing, okay? So you're just going to use your tongue to stop the air with every note. Make it sound detached, separate from the note before it and after it. Ready, go. Okay, fantastic. Now, basically, every single tune I teach you is going to have a set slurring and tonguing, okay? When you get really good at Irish traditional music and tin whistle, you're going to be fantastic and able to decide your own slurring and tonguing. But until you get to that level, stick with what's on the notation. Now, I've got to come clean. I'm a bit of a renegade when it comes to slurring and tonguing. When you get to a high level, you like to just jazz it up and freestyle, basically. So I've actually been finding it really difficult to stick to the articulation pattern that I decided upon for you and have been teaching you. So every so often there'll be a moment where I'm like, did a slur instead of a tongue, or vice versa. Please forgive me. You too will be at this level someday. Okay, that sounds a bit poncy. You too will be kind of doing mistakes all the time, like me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some background to the tune. I am going to demonstrate the tune. I'm going to teach you the ornaments that you're going to need for the part. Then I'm going to teach you that part. Each part has 4 phrases. I've broken up those phrases into sections based on the articulation pattern. So sometimes it might sound a little counterintuitive how I've broken it up, but trust me, this is ultimately how you're going to sound like a dirty old man who just came down off the mountain. Okay? So I'm going to teach you the part. Then I'm going to, section by section, get you to stitch the sections together into a phrase. And then you're going to play phrase 1. Then you're going to learn and play phrase 2. Then you're going to put phrase 1 and 2 together. Then you're going to learn phrase 3. Then you're going to put phrase 1, 2, 3 together. And then you're going to learn phrase 4. And then you're going to try phrase 1, 2, 3, 4 together. Okay? Then we're going to try playing that part twice in a row. And that's it. You've learned your part. I am going to be moving at lightning speed. So what I want you to do is, if you're not getting something, press pause, press rewind, and just try it again. So another little tip to help you get optimal efficiency in your learning process is when I'm playing the tin whistle in front of you, you can be listening but simultaneously copying my finger movements. Be amazed how that will expedite your learning. What I've done is I've made a breathing pattern in the tune, and I've hopefully put in enough breaths that you don't die of asphyxiation. Now, when we're learning the tune, we're playing it so slowly that it becomes more than 2.5 as long as its normal length. So obviously, if I were to stick to the normal breathing pattern, I would die, okay? So when I'm teaching the tune, the breaths that I take, maybe I'm at a different time to where I actually tell you to formally take a breath. That's fine. You can also do this to prevent death. But when it gets a little bit faster, for example, 50, 55 beats per minute, it's time to start taking notice of exactly where I told you to breathe, and breathe there and only there. So here's an example of the notation that I'll be giving you every week. Okay, so there's a couple of things to note about it. The first thing is that, oh, pun intended, you're going to be reading from the right to the left, just like normal in English and Irish and all that stuff. Then you're going to be reading from the top down to the next line, down to the next line, down to the next line. Okay. Now, if you play Western classical music or if you play jazz music, then you'll be able to read these dots and sticks up here. If you don't, that's totally fine. You're going to pay attention to these letters beneath them. Okay. So those letters are in uppercase and lowercase. They signify different things. The small letters, the lowercase numbers, are the high notes on the tin whistle. The big letters, or the uppercase letters, signify the low notes. Okay. Right? Now there's just a few more things I have to mention. If you look at this little curvy line here, okay, that's a slur marking, okay? And if you look here again, there's another slur marking connecting the A and the E, and then here's a slur marking connecting 4 notes, okay? So be aware of them and follow them. And if there isn't a slur marking, that means that it's automatically a tongued note, okay? So presume tonguing unless marked otherwise. Now, one other tiny thing is that there are these little lines here called bar lines, and they separate the music. So if I am referring to the notation, I will occasionally say, oh, it's line 2 bar, the second bar on it. And for example, that would be line 2 and the second bar on it. Okay. And then finally, breathing. Breathing is really useful, as we discussed, and it's taught and it's notated in this type of notation with comma. Okay, so if you'll see, there's no breaths in the first line, but then there's a breath there and a breath there and then a breath here again, etc. Right, our housekeeping is over. On to the tune.